To be said. So let's bring in Rana Mitter, who's from the Harvard Kennedy School, ST Lee Chair in US-Asia Relations. Thank you so much for being with us, Rana. The two largest economies then agreeing to agree. Trump sells it all as a tremendous success. How are you reading the situation yourself?
I would say that they have got themselves back to a balanced position, a little similar to where they were essentially about a month or so ago. Things have calmed down in terms of tariffs between the United States and China over the summer. Then both sides sort of poked at each other. The US put in more tech restrictions. China pushed back very, very hard in terms of saying, well, we may restrict all of these rare earths, not just to you in America, but to the rest of the world. And sorting out that position and getting it back to where it is was really the key goal. And that was achieved on both sides. Of course, there are plenty of issues that haven't yet been resolved. Taiwan is a good example of that. But in terms of trade, yes, I think the job has been done here. That kind of calm, the relative calm of the summer has mostly been restored for the moment.
So soybean diplomacy perhaps has worked in some way, shape or form. You mentioned the rare earths too, but also you've alluded to Taiwan and these other issues that really weren't touched at all. So there are still many areas that could lead to tension between both US and China.
There are. I mentioned Taiwan, the question of whether or not the island, which is autonomous, it's not a recognized state, but essentially it's a free democracy, very different from the authoritarian mainland. And China has made it clear that it wants to get unification with Taiwan on the agenda sooner rather than later, and has been building up its military in that direction. Traditionally, the United States has defended Taiwan's ability to defend itself. It's not a guarantee, but it is an assurance from the Americans. And Joe Biden, for one, was very keen to stress that, as was President Trump in his first term. This time around, a lot of people in Taiwan are asking, is that assurance still there? The Chinese, of course, are asking the same question, unsure about whether their chance might have come to essentially change American positions on that question. And then there's the question about, for instance, the Russia-Ukraine war, whether or not China, as a close friend of Russia, might even be pressured to bring the war to an end. That's certainly, I think, Donald Trump's hope. Whether he'll get anywhere with that idea, I think, remains to be seen. But certainly it doesn't seem to have been raised as a big issue during this meeting at all. And yet for Europe, that is, of course, a crucial question.
Indeed, it is a crucial question. As you say, that sale of Russian oil to China is helping to fuel Vladimir Putin's war effort on Ukraine. And of course, from the other side of things, of course, we don't yet know precisely how Donald Trump's going to go in terms of supporting Ukraine. So lots of other issues to discuss there. The rare earths question, does that become more relevant perhaps to Trump now to try to source new places for this? Because looking at it from a layman's perspective, it seems that China really has a stranglehold on rare earths.
Yes, it's not an absolute monopoly that China has, but it is a very, very large proportion of the world's capacity. They've been putting investment and time and effort into refining those rare earths. Rare earths are not actually that rare. You can get them anywhere, but you have to have the equipment to get them out, and that's what China dominates in. So yes, the US is taking some steps. A couple of weeks ago, they signed an agreement with Australia, a place that will be looking to create that kind of rare earth production over time. But the thing is, you can't do it overnight. It does take years, and so China will be an important source for those rare earths for a while. The other issue is that extracting rare earths is very, very environmentally damaging. China has been able to live with that environmental damage. Good question as to whether democratic states would really tolerate that level of pollution remains to be seen, but certainly the US is keen to try and get other players out there who can diversify the market from China. Over the medium term, they may succeed. In the short term, China is still the main game in town.
Indeed. Trump, though, has obviously led his campaign on the phrase drill, baby, drill, in terms of wanting to exploit untapped fossil fuels, expand what is there already. Might the appetite be there, actually, to, basically ruin the environment and explore where they can?
Well, I think the area actually where China thinks that in those terms it probably has a chance to win in the medium term is almost the opposite of drill, baby, drill, which is in green energy technology. They are, of course, also globally dominant in solar panel production, and while not dominant, at least very powerful in wind turbine production. So lots of countries around the world, particularly in the emerging economies of Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America, are turning to Chinese tech to go green in terms of energy. Now, let's not exaggerate. China is still one of the world's biggest polluters in terms of environmental damage. And yes, you're right, Mark, in terms of what society will tolerate in China as long as the economy continues to grow, maybe it's greater than what could get in a Western society. But even in China, environmental activism is making people protest. Beijing has bluer skies these days than it did 10 or 15 years ago because the local population didn't want to simply wake up and choke each morning. So all of those considerations are in play as China decides how it's going to become the dominant player in the energy sector in the next decade, just as it dominates in rare earths, just as it dominates in 5G and a variety of other core communications and platform technologies for the 2030s.
Rana Mitter, I'm only halfway through my questions. We've got so much more to talk about, but sadly time is up. It's always fascinating to have you on the programme. Thank you for joining us, as always. Rana Mitter, who is from the Harvard Kennedy School, ST Lead Chair in US-Asia Relations. Thanks for your insight. Very much appreciated.